Hey, it's your buddy Fractured Logic here. So, haven't made a video for this channel in a while, but I gotta say something about CNN and the media as a whole. Now, our president, Mr. Trump, is fond of referring to channels like CNN as, fake news, and I kind of agree with him. His Twitter war is kind of ridiculous. I really wish the man would stop tweeting. But the level of fake news is gotten ridiculous. Because that's what it is. It's all fake. It's all fake. The Russian collusion was fabricated. They have yet to find a shred of proof. They take circumstantial evidence and twist it to fit their political views, which are clearly leaning to the left, which is not right. Because a news outlet is supposed to be impartial and simply report the truth. And that's not what's happening. So if Trump ever does do something wrong, it's going to be a situation of the boy who cried wolf. No one's going to believe you, CNN. No one. Because nothing that you've reported about this administration has been rooted in truth. Steve Bannon was fired. And yet he is now, saying all this bullshit about the president and the campaign and Russian collusion and all this crazy crap. And none of it's substantiated. It's all made up. I get if there was something actually happening, yeah, it needs to be, brought up and everything like that. And I'm not a Trump fan. I want to clarify that. I thought he would be good when he first started to run because, it's the idea of having an economist in the White House rather than a politician. And the economy has been getting better since he became president. I made a joking post on Facebook on how the economy's getting better because the $5 footlong is back at Subway. But that's not really a joke. It's true. If prices are going down, that means the economy is doing well. His stance on transgender folks in the military, I don't agree with. Because if you want to serve this country, you should be allowed to. No matter what. Now, if you're transgender and you're on antidepressants, then no, you're not mentally fit for service. But not every trans person has to take antidepressants or anxiety medication or things like that. There are many transgender people, including Blair White, who are mentally healthy and happy without the need for medication. That issue of being fit for service applies to anyone, though, not just transgender people. It applies to everyone. Which is why, our vets that go overseas and they witness atrocities, all their buddies get blown up, or they've had to shoot someone at point blank range and watch the life drain out of their eyes. Those guys, they don't fight anymore for good reason. Because they're not okay. That affects you. Getting hit with rocket attacks and mortar attacks constantly affects you. It's a fact. traumatic events are traumatic events. So, that being said, I really firmly believe that CNN needs to stop and reevaluate itself as a news outlet. Now, every media outlet has a certain bias. Fox tends to lean to the right. CNN, headline news, they tend to lean a little bit more to the left. CNN has gone really left, unfortunately. And it's really hard sometimes to separate political views and news. I realize that. I have trouble separating, politics from my life. On my gaming channel, it's really hard sometimes to not say something about all this bullshit that goes on. But I'm trying really hard to keep these two channels separate because, the purpose of my gaming channel is to talk about gaming and nerd stuff. The purpose of this channel is talk about reality. And the holes that are in people's arguments and things like that. And I'm not an expert on anything, right? I never claim to be, and I never will claim to be. But when I see something that is fucked up, I'm gonna say something. That's the purpose of this channel. Which is why I named it Fractured Logic. There used to be, back in the old newspaper days, this section in the newspaper called the editorial section, which was the place for opinion pieces and theories and, things that are now considered fake news. Well, the reason they're called fake news now is because they've left the editorial page and now they're on the front page. I don't know what the truth is because I'm not privy to all the things that have happened. But I have a really hard time believing this Russian collusion story because it just sounds ridiculous. Even if Donald Trump Jr., anybody, has met with a Russian person, doesn't mean that there was collusion to have the president win the election. It's just a ridiculous notion. There's no digital traffic. There's no email traffic. There's no. At this point, I'm not even sure what it is that supposedly was colluded over. Is the story that Trump contacted Russian hackers so they could hack the voting machines and win him the election? Is that what it is? I think that's what it is, but I'm not sure because news outlets are not reporting the truth. CNN especially is guilty of this. Washington Post, Huffington Post. It's gone away from let's publish the truth and get the truth out there so the American people know what's really going on to, we have some supposed dirt, let's put it out there. None of it's verified, none of it's vetted. And it's really fucking frustrating for me. Because it's the boy who cried wolf. CNN should say, Special Investigator Mueller is investigating allegations that the president colluded with Russia. End of story. Until information is made public, either confirming the collusion or finding out that the collusion is false, the accusation is false, there shouldn't be anything else on it. Not, Steve Bannon told a guy who was writing a book that, yeah, there's no way that he didn't go up there to see the president. Are you serious? Someone who wasn't there is giving his opinion, and you're taking that as fact. Someone who has reason to burn the Trump administration. Steve Bannon was fired. Why he was fired? Don't know. That's between him and the president. Don't really care. I'm not going to take Steve Bannon's word on a situation he wasn't even involved in. And you shouldn't either, CNN. You know, you have somebody on your show and you ask him questions and then you cut him off in the middle of him trying to answer and you talk over him and you tell him he's full of shit.
Our meeting between Donald Trump Jr., Jared Kushner, Paul Manafort, and these other officials, including a Russian lawyer, he called it treasonous and unpatriotic, and he said that, quote, the chance that Don Jr. did not walk these Jamos up to his father's office on the 26th floor is zero. Did President Trump meet with any of the so-called Jamos who were in that Trump Tower meeting?
Steve Bannon's eloquence in that description notwithstanding, it's tragic and unfortunate that Steve would make these grotesque comments so out of touch with reality and obviously so vindictive. And the whole White House staff is deeply disappointed in his comments, which were grotesque. And with respect to the Trump Tower meeting that he's talking about, he wasn't even there when any of this went down. So he's not really a remotely credible source on any of it. It reads like an angry, vindictive person spouting off to a highly discreditable author. The book is best understood as a work of very poorly written fiction. And I also will say that the author is a garbage author of a garbage book. And the tragic thing about this book, and there are many things about it that are unfortunate, but the portrayal of the president in the book is so contrary to reality, to the experience of those who work with him, to my own experience having spent the last 2 years with him.
So you were at the campaign during that Trump Tower meeting, I believe, right, in the summer of 2016. Just to answer the question, because you were there and Steve Bannon was not, did any of those people from that meeting meet with President Trump? As Bannon says, the chance that he didn't, Don Jr. didn't walk these Jamos up to his father's office on the 26th floor is zero. Can you just settle that for us? Did President Trump meet with any of the people?
I have no knowledge of anything to do with that meeting.
Okay.
But what I can tell you unequivocally is that the allegations and insinuations in this book, which are a pure work of fiction, are nothing but a pile of trash through and through. Well, just to finish, Jake, because your network's been going 24/7 with all this salacious coverage, and I know that it brings a lot of you guys a lot of joy to trying to stick the knife in. But the reality is that page after page after page of the book is pure false. I see sections of the book where events I participated in are described, and I have firsthand knowledge that as they're described, they're completely and totally fraudulent.
Nobody at CNN is sticking knives in anybody. There are a lot of people in the White House quoted in the book. I don't know why.
The quote that you're referring to is a quote from Steve Bannon.
Right, who was the president's senior strategist.
And I think that the president's statement on Steve settles once and for all the view about all of that. But
let's talk about that, because I want to talk about that.
Let's dig in, though, to your comment about, he was also the president's chief strategist. So one of the other tragedies of this grotesque work of fiction is its portrayal of the president. The reality is the president is a political genius.
Steve Bannon has nothing to do with me or my presidency. When he was fired, he not only lost his job, he lost his mind. You worked hand in glove with Bannon at the White House and on the campaign. Is the president really arguing that Steve Bannon had nothing to do with him or his presidency? Because
I can only tell you my experience, which is that I joined the campaign in January of 16, before the first ballot was cast in the Iowa caucus.
Bannon helped you get that job. No?
Corey Lewandowski is the one who offered me the job in the Trump campaign. You can have 24/7.
I have no idea why you're attacking me.
Well, I'll explain to you.
My point
I'll
is,
tell you why I'm attacking you.
Steve Bannon,
Jake, you can have a 24/7.
Helped push the president's travel ban. He helped pull out.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's one of the fake news items in the book.
Stephen,
I would happen to know better than you would, Jake, about how the travel ban was written. Steve Bannon didn't push the travel ban.
If you would let me,
Steve Bannon wasn't right.
If you let me ask this question.
No, because you get 24 hours of negative anti-Trump hysterical coverage on this network that led in recent weeks to some spectacularly embarrassing false reporting.
I think the
from your
viewers
network
right now can ascertain who's being hysterical.
The viewers are entitled to have 3 months of the truth. Why don't you just give me 3 minutes to tell you the truth about Donald Trump that I know, and then all of our campaign staff know?
Because it's my show and I don't want to do that. So here's my question.
No, but this isn't a courtroom, and I have a right to speak.
Settle down, calm down.
Jake.
I have a question for you about issues. Stephen Bannon, who the president says had nothing to do with his presidency, he was part of the president's travel ban. He was part of pulling out of the Paris climate deal. He was part of withdrawing from the TPP. He's part of border security. He's part of being tough on immigration.
So you want to go through the list?
No, I don't want to go through, but my point is it really the position of the Trump White House that Steve Bannon had nothing to do with the presidency, or can you acknowledge the reality that he was a key player?
I think that what the point is that his role has been greatly exaggerated, whereas the president hasn't gotten the due that he deserves for the movement that he put together to tap into the kinds of people whose life concerns don't get a lot of attention on CNN. Not a lot of hours of coverage on this TV. The final draft of the letter, the one that was
I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking about the one that Comey has that mentions Russia.
If you want to have an answer to your question and not to get hysterical, then I'll answer it. The final draft of the letter has the same line about the fact that there is a Trump-Russia investigation that this has nothing to do with. For the American people to hear the real experience of Donald Trump.
There's one viewer that you care about right now, and you're being obsequious, you're being a factotum in order to please him, okay? And I think I've wasted enough of my viewers' time. Thank you, Stephen. As Republicans, lawmakers call for Attorney General Jeff Sessions to resign. In a major reversal, Democrats are now coming to his defense. What changed? We'll ask the top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee next.
And you never give him even a chance to rebut anything. So why the fuck would you invite someone from the Trump administration on one of your shows and say, hey, we're going to give you an open forum, you can defend yourself, you can give us the real story, and then you just turn around and shut them down? This is the same tactic that feminists have been throwing out there. The extreme third wave feminists have been throwing out there to discredit people who are actually using logical information, factual information, accurate statistics in context. It's the same thing. I believe in equality for all people. However, caveat to that, if you are not a legal American citizen, you must go through the process of becoming one. That's just all there is to it. So, it's really unfortunate the guy up in Michigan getting deported, but he's been in this country for 30 years and never got his citizenship. Doing the right thing is doing the right thing. And the guy did the right thing in regards to paying his taxes and things like that, but he never got his citizenship. That's not doing the right thing. Now, I realize that he came to this country at 9 years old, and that's not his fault. But he's had at least the last 20 years as an adult to know that he's got to get his citizenship, and he refused to do it. It sucks being torn away from his family. It's terrible. He may not even speak fucking Spanish, and yet he's being deported to Mexico. The quality of life in Mexico is shit compared to what he's used to in Michigan. But honestly, that's not the fault of the Trump administration. The Trump administration is finally doing what other administrations before him refused to do, and that's enforcing our immigration laws. I can't believe we had a lottery to decide who got into this country. What the fuck is that shit? Whose fucking bright idea was that? It's ridiculous. Personally, I wasn't even aware of this whole lottery system for immigration until Trump brought it up and said, hey, you know, we need to get rid of the lottery and have a system based on merit. I didn't know the system wasn't based on merit. I would have thought the system would have been based on merit from the very fucking beginning. Because why would we want to let people who are criminals into our country knowingly and say, hey, here, you're a citizen now. Go pay your taxes and live the American dream. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. You know, so, you know, I do support the idea of immigration reform and having a system based on merit. You know, that's one area that me and the president agree on. You can come to this country, that's fine, but you need to come here and be productive, not come here and sit on welfare. And that's another thing. Our welfare system is garbage. It was enacted after the Dust Bowl to try and protect Americans who had lost their jobs due to the Great Depression. It was never meant to be a replacement for having a job. It was meant to be supplemental, you know, to help people so they don't starve, so they don't become homeless. And unfortunately, our welfare system has been abused for years. You know, people crank out babies like it's nothing so they can get more assistance. It's stupid. It's perpetuating the problem, especially when it's an unstable household. And by unstable, I mean there's not a two-parent system. And I don't say mother and father system for a reason, because you can have two parents and have them be the same gender. But without a two-parent system in the house, and at least one income besides welfare, it just perpetuates it. Because these children become disadvantaged. You know, they don't have any strong role models in the house. They don't have positive influences. They don't have people encouraging them to do their best, do really well in school, and get out of the welfare system. They're just one more tick on the taxpayer dollar. Now, I'm not saying welfare needs to go away altogether. You know, I've gone through rough times in my life and needed, you know, food stamps to help feed my family, medical care for my kids, you know. And we can have that, you know, needed assistance when it's needed. You know, as long as you pay your taxes, you pay your dues, then I see no problem with collecting a little bit back from the government. You know, it's the same thing when tax time comes around. You got kids, you know, and you get a tax credit, and, you know, you get $4,000 or $5,000 on a tax return. You know, that helps you pay off debts that you may have accrued. That helps you buy a new car so you can get to work. Things like that. You know, so I'm not saying we need to repeal health, that we need to get rid of welfare assistance altogether. I'm not saying that. But I do think there should be mandatory drug testing for welfare recipients. Welfare system is broken and we need a better one. Thank God Obamacare is going away, because that was a huge mistake. Thank God, quote unquote, net neutrality is gone, because that was a huge mistake. You know, that was trying to fix a problem that didn't exist. You know, I'm very happy that, quote unquote, net neutrality is dead. guess what? My internet has not been throttled. I never have trouble getting on the internet and going to certain sites. Never. Just saying. Anyway, that's it for this tirade. This has been Fractured Logic. As they say, stay woke. No, that's stupid. just take everything with a grain of salt. Toodles.